called my parents. My parents arrived to the pool before ambulance did. Um, by the time ambulance got to the pool, I had zero heart rate and zero blood pressure, so my heart stopped.
So effectively, you had died
So
there at the pool.
technically, I did die
Yeah.
for a period of time, and then I find out this diagnosis, and so I was like, the last thing I want is to lose that,
Right.
lose my wife, lose my dogs, lose this life that I worked so hard to create,
Wow.
because I was finally happy.
You've built this life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I was finally happy, but now there was an obstacle in my way that was trying to take that happiness away from me.
What's up, coaches? Welcome to Your Coach's Coach. I am your host, Coach Justin Blackwell. For those of you who don't know me, I am a NASM certified personal trainer, a boxing coach, as well as a father of two based out here in Los Angeles, California. I'm also the former director of programming for an international boxing and fitness brand, where my role was not only to create curriculums, teach classes, and conduct private training sessions myself, but also on educating coaches on the fundamentals of our product, how to teach boxing in classes, and more importantly, how to build their business within the business. I've created this podcast as a continuation of that work in hopes that through my interviews, I can help coaches around the world understand how successful coaches, both established and up and coming, have navigated and continue to navigate their world of sports and fitness. You're going to hear some really incredible journeys and some really raw stories on this podcast. And I hope you find this podcast valuable, useful, and entertaining. If you do, please like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you for joining me. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
So first of all, let me introduce my guest, right? And actually, let me start with kind of how I came across our guest. For those of you listening, for those of you watching, I think a couple of years back, as most coaches and fitness enthusiasts do, I follow many people on Instagram, and this gentleman started popping up on my feed a few years back. Great boxing, right? Kind of trained out of this like rustic looking facility. I think it's in Venice, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Gold's Gym in Venice.
And it just looks super cool.
Yeah.
And so obviously I was just kind of a fan of the content. But then I think ultimately what led us here today and to my curiosity about really your story was you sharing a story about, obviously being a cancer survivor, which we'll get to. And that touched me in a lot of ways, and I'll explain why later on and share a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. And you're also a father. Mm-hmm. Father, how old is your son, right?
Yeah, 16 months. 16
months. So father, 16 month. I have a 5-year-old, 18-month-old.
Beautiful.
So I know the journey. But anyways, for those of you listening, for those of you tuning in, this is Shark Strong coaching. Shark, I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to appreciate you for showing up today, man. And I know in our world, time is money. So whenever you show up and somebody shows up, it means a lot. So thank you for showing up today, man.
No, yeah, man, it's my pleasure. I really, I appreciate what you do, spreading the positive message, and that's what I'm about, so it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously I gave a little bit of an intro, but I think the biggest thing for every guest that, I plan on having on this podcast is starting kind of at the beginning, right? So learning a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get all the way into kind of your fitness journey and who you are. But let's take it back to when you were young, and how young, I'll leave up to you, but talk to me about when you were little, where you're from, what was life like, how did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Ukraine, in the city of that's called Donetsk, which is on the very eastern side of Ukraine, which is now a war zone. I grew up a normal kid. My dad was a orthopedic surgeon. My mom was in marketing, like switching jobs here and there. Around 7 years old, they brought me I grew up a swimmer, Swimming was my first competitive sport, which is actually where the nickname Shark came from.
That's sick.
So around 7 years old, my parents brought me to the swimming club, and the purpose of that was just, for general health. They never had plans for me becoming like a competitive athlete, professional athlete, or anything like that.
Right.
They just want me to play some kind of sport which is relatively safe for injuries and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I started swimming at 7, and I just kind of, I was never, I'll be honest, I was never huge into swimming.
Right.
Like, it wasn't my calling to do swimming. And growing up, I was asking my mom and dad to sign me up for boxing, but they would always say no.
Really?
And
Why is that?
because their reason was they were afraid of me getting like brain damage and like trauma to the head and stuff like this, which I don't blame them,
Understandable.
but yeah, we can talk about parenting and how am I gonna be with my son.
Oh,
and
we'll
shit
definitely
like
we'll
this.
definitely get to that.
I don't necessarily think that was the right thing to do for them as a parent, but I don't judge. I understand. But anyways, yeah, I just kind of stuck with swimming, and
Okay.
I was doing well, man. At first it was just I was going there because I met friends there, and it was like you know, it was cool because I was hanging out with the guys, and it was like good people who I was training with. And then eventually I just started to get a feel for what this whole swimming thing is all about, and working harder, and I was doing better and better, and eventually I was a junior national champion of Ukraine.
Oh wow.
I won Ukrainian national championships twice, and I was multiple time silver and bronze medalist. So I got to a pretty high level, but by the age I was like 15, 16, 17, I was one of the top swimmers in Ukraine in
Wow.
my age category. So that's kind of the backstory how I got into sports. I already mentioned that I asked my parents to do boxing because I was drawn to it.
Yeah.
I had a desire to learn it, and not gonna lie, I've been bullied when I was little, and I was a scared, insecure little kid,
Yeah.
and I just had that burning desire inside of me to become strong enough so that I'm not scared anymore. I'm not afraid to walk around these streets and get my ass beat or getting robbed or anything like that, or just being picked on or
Yeah. What was Donetsk like back when you were young, in terms of like, was it like a pretty rough neighborhood growing up, or?
Yeah, so I grew up in the 90s,
Right.
and it was rough back
Right.
then. So that's the time when USSR fell apart. Ukraine was a part of USSR,
That's right.
and then USSR fell apart, and it became Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, all these countries,
Right. Pretty like unstable kind of
Unstable
country at
time.
that time, right? Like,
Unstable time. A lot. Criminal level was real high.
All right.
Like racketeers everywhere. Like there was no such thing as being an entrepreneur and running your business, or like, like I said, my dad was working for the government hospital,
Yeah.
being the surgeon. And let's make it clear also, doctors in Ukraine don't make as much money as doctors in the United States.
Right. Right. Because they work
It's-
for the government, so it's probably
Yeah,
a
it's
cap,
an
right?
ungrateful job, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so yeah, where I was going with this.
I was just asking about like kind of how it was growing up.
Yeah,
And,
it was it was pretty rough, it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough, but tough times make strong men. Strong men create
Good times.
easier good times.
Yeah.
Good times create soft men. Soft men
right.
create tough times. So it's this circle. So that was the time in the period of my life where it was tough times, and I was growing up in the tough times, and I'm grateful, because it made me who I am, made
Absolutely.
me stronger. So yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as, so obviously you said you were bullied as a young child. You made it to a pretty high level in sports. Before we even move forward into like you getting into boxing and, kind of the beginning of that
Yeah.
journey, I want to dive a little bit back into the sports that you did, swimming as
Yeah.
a youngster, because obviously I have a 5-year-old, you have a kid.
Yeah.
And we'll, like I said, talk about kind of parenting and sports and
Yeah.
how that plays a factor in it. But I'm curious to know, just kind of from your perspective, what did what did you get out of swimming? Because I too, when I was young, my pops would put me in taekwondo and aikido and all these martial arts and stuff when I was young, and I never truly appreciated it until I got older. Is there
Yeah.
anything from that period or from that journey that you look back and say like, nah, that was valuable?
Undoubtedly, discipline. Discipline and mental resilience. I would say mental endurance.
For sure.
Because look, I swam since I was 7 years old, and I finished my career at 25.
Oh wow.
And there were so many days when I didn't want to go to training,
Wow.
but I swear to God, I never skipped practice.
Yeah.
Never in my life.
And if I know anything about the Ukrainian culture, by the way, when we talk about training, right? I know a lot about like the Ukrainian boxers and kind of their programs. They don't play. They don't play like
No.
when they want to, when they're trying to win, like that's
No.
part of just the
If
culture.
if you show up to practice and you give a coach an attitude, you get the fuck out of there.
That's
you know?
right.
There's no attitude. There's like, you show up and you put in work.
Right.
And that's how everybody is. And if you're not like this, you're gonna regret it, because other guys will make fun of you and shit like this. So there's this good social pressure, because everybody shows up and they mean business.
That's right.
And you have to live up to that standard.
Yeah.
So something that I learned through my swimming career is just, no matter what, just show up and do your best.
That's right.
This is something that not every day you feel your best. We're all humans. We go through ups and downs, and emotionally, physically, we can get sick, or we can be tired, or we can be deprived of sleep, or whatever. But no matter what, your day is your life.
That's right.
And we live one day at a time, and it's just about showing up.
That's
As long
right.
as you show up and you do your best, that's what matters. And this is what I'm going to teach my son.
That's right. That's right. And it's like a saying I used to say when I was teaching class. I said, listen, I don't expect you to be at 100%, but whatever you got, I expect to give you to give 100% of
That's
what
it.
that is. You know
That's
what I mean?
it. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And same, man, when I look back at like the Taekwondo, I have this funny story that I always tell people. My pops, again, put me in Aikido when I was like 4, and all I remember from Aikido was doing these rolls, like these kind of like rolls that they do in like wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff. And I always, as I got older into my teenage years, I was like, man, what a waste of time that was. You know what I mean? I never used Aikido anywhere. And I'm over here in Burbank one time. I'm 13 years old. I'm riding a bike down the front steps of this building, and I hook the tire and go head first over the handlebars. There's like 8 steps left.
Damn.
I tuck and I roll on the concrete, no injuries, not a scratch on me. And I think back to myself, that was from Aikido. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just never know what's going to pop out like later on in your life, you know?
That's cool. That's
yeah.
dope.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Cool. So moving forward, right, we talked a little bit about growing up in Ukraine and Donetsk. When did you actually start getting into boxing? What was that? What was going on in your life at that time? And take me into like what actually like sparked that transition.
Totally. So let me tell you how I came to the United States, because
Okay.
this is important.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was a top swimmer, as a teenager. Before you turn 18, you compete in age categories. And in my age category, I was one of the top in Ukraine. And just when I turned 18, during swimming practice, I had a heart attack.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a long story, but
Hey, we got time, brother. Let me know.
so
if you don't mind sharing,
yeah,
it's totally up to you.
So yeah, I remember that morning like it was yesterday. I mean, it was April 15, 2010.
Yeah.
I woke up, I had a tea before practice, and I walked outside and got on the bus, came to the pool, just regular morning, nothing unusual. I don't feel any kind of way, like I'm normal.
Yeah,
you
just
know what
another
I'm
day in
saying?
the office.
Yeah, just another day in the office. So I come in the pool, change, we start practice. It's me and a couple, we had a small team training at that point, me and a couple of other guys who I swam with. We warm up, it was like a brief warm up, and then we have our first working set, which I also remember what it was. It was 6 50s, 6 times 50 meters, with like a little bit of rest, and we had to build our effort from first to third, and then from fourth to sixth. So like first nice and easy, second medium pace, third fast as you can, and then again fourth easy, fifth medium pace, medium effort, and then sixth as
For a
fast as you
total of
can,
6.
racing. Yeah,
Right, wow.
yeah. So I finished my sixth, and I was a breaststroker. You know what a breaststroke is?
Kind of,
It's
yeah.
like a frog, you know.
Yeah.
So we're swimming, and I take my last stroke and I touch the wall on the last 50, and we finished the set, which is not a hard set, by the way, not a hard set. Like it's like a regular thing. We're just kind of still activating and preparing for the main set of the practice. But you know, I raced that 50 and I gave it a really good effort. You know, everything that I had, which is normal. You know, this is something that you do on the regular. And I touched the wall and I finished my last 50, and I feel that, you know, my heart rate is unusually high and irregular, like, and I kind of freak out. I just don't feel normal, and I look at down on my chest like this, and I can see literally my heart was beating so hard that I could see like the skin on my chest like bumping like this.
Wow.
And I freaked the fuck out. So I'm like, okay, I should probably measure my heart rate. I look at the stopwatch on the wall. Normally I would put my 2 fingers right here on my neck to count my heart rate, but intuitively I just put my hand on my heart, and the beats were so strong that I could count, but they were so fast that I'm pretty sure I miscounted. What I counted was 35.
Wow.
Which is fast. And I tell my coach, hey, my heart rate is 35, and he goes he laughed. He was like yeah,
like you're exaggerating. Right?
Yeah, he thought I was exaggerating or what, or you know, being funny or whatever. He told me warm down means just like swim nice and easy, cool down, try to slow it down. And I'm like, you know, I don't really feel like warming down, something is wrong. But I see that he doesn't really listen. He doesn't really connect with me, and I'm panicking at this point. And I climb out of the pool, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I see this lady, other coach, who was working with their swimmers on the other side of the pool, and I come up to that lady, and I'm like, her name was Vlada Alexandrovna. I knew her, and I'm like, something is wrong with me. Can you look at my chest? Like, something is wrong with me. And she goes, wait, relax, try to, you know, sit down on this bench, try to breathe nice and deep, try to relax, try to, you know, see if you can calm yourself. And so I sit down on this bench for a second, and at this point my mind is just racing. I'm having million thoughts a second because I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I feel that something is wrong, and my heart rate is so fast, and I feel like I'm choking. I'm gasping for air,
like hyperventilating almost.
Yeah. And so I'm like, what the fuck do I do? So one of my thoughts that I catch in my mind was, maybe you should go in the showers and get in the cold shower. Maybe that will, I don't know why, but that was one of the thoughts that I caught. And so I decide to act on that thought. I get up from that bench and start walking to the showers. And thank God that, you know, this will happen, because I believe in divine intervention. I believe in God. And that moment on my way to showers, in the United States, on pool decks they have lifeguards. In Ukraine they have nurses. So I meet this lady nurse on the pool deck. She was there. And I just grabbed this little lady. It was this old little lady. I think she was like in her 70s or 80s even. And I just say, help me, I'm not feeling good, something is wrong. And so moments later, I was just laying on this little bench. They called an ambulance. They called my parents. My parents arrived to the pool before ambulance did. By the time ambulance got to the pool, I had 0 heart rate and 0 blood pressure. So my heart stopped.
So effectively, you had died there at the pool.
Technically, I did die for a period of time, which is called cardiac arrest. When your heart stops. And so that's what happened. And ambulance showed up. They shot me with epinephrine. They did something else. Somehow they got me out of that state. And you know my heart started beating normally again.
Yeah. Did they use any like defibrillator or anything at the
They
time?
did not
They
use
didn't,
defibrillator.
especially because you were just out of the pool.
They
I
shot
imagine.
me. Yeah, they
Yeah.
shot me with something, and they did something else, which I can't tell you what exactly.
Yeah, right.
So later that day I was obviously hospitalized, and they did a whole bunch of tests on me, and they found out that I was born with the rare heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome.
Okay.
So-
What is it called? It's called
Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. They call it
Wolff-Parkinson-White
Wolff-
syndrome?
Yeah, they
Wow.
call it Wolff's heart.
Wolff's heart.
Basically, to explain what it is, there was something in one of the arteries in my heart that was not supposed to be there,
Wow.
like a genetic, some kind
Right.
of
Like
thing.
that was plugging
Yeah.
one of the arteries? Or?
So during exercise, during training, my heart rate got up and the blood flow would increase, right?
Right.
My heart was pumping, and whatever that was not supposed to be there, it blocked one of the arteries.
Wow.
And so my heart kept pumping, trying to pump the blood in and out, but the blood flow stopped
Right.
because it was one of the arteries was completely blocked.
Wow.
So this what caused the cardiac arrest. Anyways, then they found it out, and later next month I get scheduled for surgery to fix the issue, to remove that whatever got blocked one of the arteries, right? And I get the surgery done. They do the surgery on me, and the doc who did the surgery on me, she was like a top professional. She said that surgery went well and this should never happen again. However, doctors never gave me green light to continue my athletic career. They said you can and probably should to continue to exercise for fitness and health,
Right.
but competitive sports where you push yourself to limits are highly we can't give you a green light to do it.
Right.
But I was like, it's not an option. At that point, all I knew was swimming. At that point, my dream was to be an Olympian for
Right.
Ukraine. I was one of the top swimmers in Ukraine, my age category, and all I knew was swimming. All I wanted to do was swimming.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not an option. How do I find a way to continue my athletic career?
Right.
So that's how I came to the United States.
Okay.
I reached out to colleges, and I got a full ride.
Yeah. And you're what age at this time? Are you 17 or 18?
I was 18.
18 at the time.
I
Okay.
was 18, but surgery, then a little bit of recovery. I took a year off, not doing anything, didn't go to school, I trained.
Right.
I trained with the coach who my parents paid privately, so he trained me one-on-one. While I was communicating with all these
colleges.
American colleges and looking for what's the best option for me.
Yeah.
And so one of the colleges gave me a full ride, Westchester University in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And in 2011, I came to the United States to be an NCAA swimmer.
Wow.
And a full-time college athlete,
Okay. Well, let's transition. First of all, what a story, right? Because it's so and it's always so interesting. Because I've heard this. I have a family full of nurses, right? But you always hear about these stories where like somebody has something genetic, right? And here you are, basically this elite level swimmer, right? Warming up, and all of a sudden this genetic thing just happens all of a sudden. I mean, I can only imagine. You're a young kid at the time. I can imagine the panic, the anxiety that you're feeling like in this moment. And like you, I do believe in that divine intervention. I've had those moments, and so, glad there was obviously a purpose to you, continuing your journey. But, what a crazy ride you had to go through just to get to the States, man. So take me in to now you're transitioning over to the U.S. You're getting ready to swim. What was that transition like for you, just culturally, for your life?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But it was scary at the same time because I didn't speak English.
Ah, okay.
I came to the United States to go to college.
Yeah.
and I didn't speak English.
Right.
I sat in the classroom and didn't understand the word. Like my first class, I also remember it like it was yesterday. It was sociology of a family.
Right.
And I didn't understand shit.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know what's going on here.
I didn't understand nothing, man. And I was scared because it was a dream of mine
Right.
to come to the United States. It was a dream of mine to learn English. You
Right.
know, growing up, I loved rap. You
Right.
know, and my favorite band of all time is Mobb Deep, and I grew up listening
right.
to Mobb Deep, to Wu-Tang, to old 50 Cent, Eminem. You know,
That's right.
Dr.
Are you an
Dre.
80s baby?
90s.
You're
I was
90s
born
baby.
in 91.
91. Okay, so just
Yeah.
just a little bit after me. I was born in 85, so I grew up. I listened to all
Yeah.
the same artists. You know.
Yeah, so I grew up listening to all these artists and bands, and the sound of this music just like always felt so inspiring to me. I was always so drawn to it, but I was like, I wish I understood just maybe even a little bit of what they say, and I try to translate. Like back then, there was
There was no Google and stuff like that. Yeah.
When then the first internet, you know, when we got our first Google and shit, I started to look up these lyrics and try to translate them and stuff like this. But yeah, man. So when I first came to the United States, it was hard to describe this feeling because I was ecstatic, but at the same time scared to death.
Yeah.
I was scared to fail. I was scared to be kicked out of college.
And you're alone at this point, right? Or did you come with the family?
No,
It's just
I
you.
came by myself. So me and my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, we got scholarships at the same year. We left Ukraine the same year.
Oh wow.
We were dating for a year and a half at that point
In Ukraine.
in Ukraine,
Yeah.
and then we both got scholarships, but in different colleges.
Wow.
So she went to school in Texas. I went to school in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So yeah,
that had to be a blessing though, a little bit though, right?
yeah,
Like,
we had each other, and we would be on the phone all day, every day.
That's
If
right.
I wasn't in class or at practice, I was speaking to her on the
That's
phone.
yeah.
And so we were
cool.
like supporting each other through this whole stuff. But yeah, back to how it was, the transition. It was amazing. It felt like a dream come true. It felt like I was in the movie because I also grew up watching Hollywood movies and
That's
stuff.
right.
So I was happy as hell, and I realized what kind of an opportunity it is.
Yeah.
And I was just, I felt this immense pressure on me, which I obviously put on myself. But I was like, there's no way in hell I'm not gonna make it work. There's no way in hell, I'm gonna get kicked out, and I'm not gonna perform well in swimming.
Yeah.
And thankfully my perseverance and my focus and me not quitting and just again showing up day by day and giving it my best effort, it paid off. And I graduated college. I was a Pennsylvania champ 4 years in a row.
That's what's up.
I was an NCAA All-American. I was ranked 6th in the nation.
Wow. And see, this is stuff we don't know based off the social media. Like
Yeah,
I don't know this
people
part of the
know
story.
me as this boxer guy or whatever, but
Yeah.
swimming was a huge part of my story, and I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for swimming.
Yeah. Not only was it a big part of your story, it was almost a key for you, right? Like
Yeah.
looking back on it, I imagine, we just talked about those things that our parents do that
Yeah.
kind of ended up being
Yeah.
that little bit of a key. And like, even though we didn't like the sport,
Yeah.
at some point they come back to help us out.
Yeah, this is why I'm grateful,
Yeah.
for everything. All those, like I mentioned earlier, swimming was never my favorite sport that I was drawn to, but I'm grateful that
Yeah.
everything that worked out the way it is, because I probably wouldn't come to the United States.
Right.
It probably wouldn't work out this way. I probably wouldn't meet my wife,
Yeah.
So if I had a chance to change anything in my past, I wouldn't. No
That's
way.
right. That's right. You appreciate that part of your journey.
Totally.
So it's a successful, basically sounds like a really successful college career. And I have to say, just to add kind of my perspective in this, it's so interesting to talk to you about that transition from Ukraine, right? I'm born in America. And it wasn't until I went home to where my mother's from. She's from the Philippines. I was just talking to Jesse about this. And And when I went, man, I really had such a different perspective of the world. And I've never been to Ukraine, so I can't speak on Ukraine. But in the Philippines, for example, it's just such a different living. They aspire to much different things than we do here in America, and it really kind of leveled me out. And I've been twice, and every time I've come back, I've always just had this different perspective on what you call the opportunity that America does have. Right? There's so many opportunities here, and I think sometimes because I'm from here, I don't value that in the way that somebody who has to move here does. Right? And I see my friends. I have friends who moved in from Australia and all types of stuff. And they just approach this place much different than us who live here. You know what I mean? So I can imagine that had a big effect on your drive and your purpose moving forward. So.
Yeah, man, totally. But see, you do appreciate it because you can relate. Your mom is from Philippines. You have friends who, you get that perspective and you understand it. You comprehend it, and you're like, man, we probably don't appreciate this as much, as we should.
Oh.
And you're right. I think most people, unfortunately, who were born here don't appreciate, because what these people who live here, a lot of these people complain about. It's somebody else's dream.
That's right.
Somebody else out there in Ukraine right now, sitting at their house, and they getting bombs dropped on their city,
right? Literal war zone.
And they dream about living in the shitty ass place that you call shitty ass place.
That's right.
So
life is about perspective.
It's
right?
all about perspective.
It really is.
It's all about perspective, and you never, unfortunately, appreciate something until it's taken from you. You know. So. Yeah, I mean, everybody's on their own journey, and they have to learn their lessons. But I believe, even the people who don't appreciate, I think the lessons will show up on their door as well to teach them.
Without a doubt, life will humble you one way or another, right?
Yeah.
I agree, brother. So we're out of college. Let's start transitioning into
how I started boxing.
Shark Strong. What was the first stage of that? And maybe not Shark Strong, the coaching, but obviously there was a beginning to that boxing journey and who you would become as a coach. Where did that start at?
So teaching and coaching was the first thing I ever did. Was my first job ever, you know. So because I never worked in Ukraine prior to coming to the United States. All I did was just being an athlete and a student, right?
Yep.
I went to school. But the first job that I ever had was a swimming teacher. I taught swimming lessons to kids as young as 3 years old up to teenagers and stuff, different skill levels. So I taught kids to swim from scratch, from not knowing how to put their face in the water, and intermediate level where they can flow or know how to take a stroke or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all the way up to advanced level. And then again, when I came to the United States, there was nobody stopping me from doing what I'm drawn to, which is boxing,
right.
So thankfully, when you're a college athlete, you have a season. And in swimming, our season was 7 months long. And so 5 months out of the year, you get to train however you like.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Nice.
And so I found a local boxing gym in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and that's how I started boxing.
Yeah. What was that first gym? Can you say?
Yeah, it the name of it?
Yeah, the name.
Yeah, it was called MSMA.
MSMA.
Mr. Stewart's Martial Arts.
That's
because
right.
the owners of the gym, his name was Mr. Stewart.
All right, shout out Mr. Stewart.
Shout out to Mr. Stewart. So that's where I started boxing. That's where I learned all the basics, and that's how I got into boxing.
Yeah.
And like I said, all I ever did was teaching and coaching. So my very first job was swimming, teaching swim lessons. Every summer, I would teach swimming lessons to kids. And then I believe after a couple of years, so I started boxing my first year of college. In the off season, I joined that boxing gym. And then on year 3, my junior year, I asked Mr. Stu, the owner of the gym, if I can help him out with strength and conditioning classes, because he taught like boxing classes and anything combat related.
Yeah.
But there was also conditioning class, and I knew a lot about conditioning from swimming because
Right. You're like, that's my world.
you
I can
know
do that.
I understand conditioning.
Yeah.
I understand this type of training, and I offered him, and I did it for free.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into working with people and coaching people, and yeah, man, that's how my coaching began. And then when I graduated college in 2016, I went through a little bit of a transition period. At the time, I was not in the best mental state. I was pretty depressed. I was just not happy with myself, not with how I look in the mirror, not how I feel, I don't know. I just felt very much in a dark place mentally.
Did you attribute that to anything in particular, or was it just kind of a
You
bunch of
know,
things?
I don't know exactly. I think it's a bunch of things.
Mhm.
So in 2014, the war in Ukraine started.
Right.
My parents were almost killed. They immigrated to the United States. They came with not a lot of money. They burned through almost all that money real quick.
Right.
Thankfully, my Westchester community, people who I met in Westchester, parents of swimmers who I swam with and stuff, very kind people who offered us a lot of help.
Right.
They helped us a lot, and I am forever grateful for that. But it was just a rough period of time when, the war in Ukraine, and at that time, to be honest with you, Justin, my last 2 years of swimming, I hated it.
Really?
I didn't want to do it anymore.
You're just over it, huh?
I was just over it. I didn't want to do it. I just did it because I had a goal to, finish college and do this for education, to get my degree. And I had a full scholarship that was paying for my tuition. I
Right.
didn't have nobody to pay my tuition. I didn't have money.
All right. The swimming was the payment.
Swimming was the payment.
That's
That
right.
was, so yeah, that was my job.
Yeah.
And so I just did it because I had to. But my last 2 years of swimming, I had no more love for it.
Right.
No more passion. And so I think just accumulation of, doing something that I don't love anymore, and all this stuff going on in Ukraine, all the stress from my family, and my wife's family still in Ukraine to this day, and there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Right.
And I also when I finished my swimming, my senior year, you lose your eligibility, right? You
Right.
only get 4 years to compete in NCAA. So once my eligibility was up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get into boxing and get more focused on boxing.
Yeah.
And so I started, training more seriously. And one of the coaches who I was working with told me, hey, Shark, you need to lose weight and get down to lower weight classes. And when I first finished swimming, I really picked up on the gym and lifting, and I got really bulky.
Right.
I can share some pictures when I was like, almost 100 kilos, which is, over 200 pounds,
For
well
sure.
over 200
Yeah, it's like
pounds.
220 or something like that, right? Like something like that.
100 kilos is 220, but I was not quite there. I was like, I think the heaviest I was 213 or 215.
Yeah, same. I got there too. I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now I'm 167.
That's
you know?
right.
So I was like heavy, and my coach was like, Shark, I think you need to get down to lower weight classes.
Yeah. And you're trying to compete at this point.
Yeah, I was trying to
Okay.
compete. Because I was sparring this whole time. I started sparring my freshman year, so I already had a years of sparring experience.
Right.
So I was like, let me get a fight in my boxing book. So yeah, I decided to sign up, and he was like, okay, we need to get you into either 150s or 160s,
Right.
So I got onto extreme, very restrictive diet.
Yeah.
And that also fucked me up because I developed an eating disorder. I went really, I had no knowledge about nutrition at that point.
All right.
So I made a lot of mistakes.
Really?
I made a lot of mistakes.
What were some of those mistakes that you made back then?
So I didn't know how to track any macronutrients. I didn't know what the protein, fat, or carb was. I didn't know that it was important to get your fiber and your micronutrients and your vitamins and your minerals and your electrolytes.
Right.
I didn't know that. I wasn't even salting my egg whites when I was cooking them.
Right. So you're literally
Because
just cutting calories.
I believed salt will make me retain water, which will slow down my weight loss process. That's how obsessed I was about it. And like, you know, this shit is no joke. So I would go 1,000 to 1,200 calories per day while running 5 miles a day.
Right.
Jump rope, bag work, pad work, sparring.
Right. You're burning like 3K a day easy, right? Like,
Yeah. I would go to
crazy.
bed. I would go to bed exhausted,
Yeah.
starving,
Right.
couldn't sleep. I would literally chug NyQuil
Wow.
or ZQuil to fall asleep.
Oh, wow.
I would sleep for 3 hours, and then my body would wake me up because I'm starving.
Right.
So I was like, "There's no way I'm eating. I'm gonna go for a run." I would
Right.
wake up early. I would wake up after 3 hours of sleep and then go for a run. So I really messed up my relationship with self and my relationship with food,
Right.
and all of that previous stuff that I mentioned, war in Ukraine, me not doing what I, with swimming, and just kind of been a rough period of time in
Right.
my life, and I was struggling, and I dug myself a real dark and a deep hole.
Yeah.
So I was struggling.
Yeah. So what was the next step for you after this, right? So you're in this dark place, like, I see you nowadays as this shining family man doing the damn thing. So talk to me about what pushed you forward, and, what played the biggest keys to that, moving forward from that place.
So at that point, I already graduated college, and my wife at that time was coaching. My wife is a synchronized swimmer. That's how we met.
Right.
I grew up a swimmer. She grew up a synchronized swimmer. We trained in the same pool on many occasions.
Wow.
We knew each other since we were 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, you guys got a real love story, brother.
We don't even remember how we met. People ask us how we met. We don't remember
that's
because
so long ago.
It was one of the practices, I guess.
That's cool.
So my wife was coaching synchro in Canada, in Montreal, right? And I was going through this rough period. And then also, this is 2007, I believe it was beginning of 2017. I'm still struggling with food. I'm still training hard. I have this binge eating disorder, right, where I'm restricting calories. It's very restrictive, like I just explained. And then I would go on crazy binges because I couldn't.
Just loading up.
Yeah, I would go, I would eat thousands and thousands and thousands of calories in one sitting.
Right.
Because, that was the cycle.
Yeah. And are you even eating like healthy food for those
No.
calories, or are you just literally going ham?
No, just going ham. Pies of pizza, fucking party size M&Ms.
Right.
Not share size, not family size.
Right.
Party size.
Party size for the
M&Ms.
whole party.
I would dip chocolate bars into ice cream and eat that.
Yeah. So you're either on one end of the spectrum, either like no
Yeah.
good food or
Yeah.
all the bad food.
Yeah.
It's just like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm dealing with that. And one of the nights I come home after sparring, I got my ass beat.
As we all do, at least.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, and I'm just, I'm down, mentally feeling down. I feel like shit. I don't respect myself for the way I treat my own body and how I eat and all that. And I've already been struggling mentally, and all this is just going heavier and heavier and heavier on my shoulders, And that's when I started smoking weed. And so I smoked a bowl. I think it was, either February or March of 2017. And I take a hit, and then I go in the bathroom. I use the bathroom. I turn around. I wash my hands, and I look at myself in the mirror, and my eyes are high as fuck, right?
Yeah.
Like almost closed, red as hell. And I'm standing there, and I look at my face, and I laugh. I don't know why. I just looked at my reflection in the mirror, and I laughed, and I threw a couple of punches, like shadow boxing. And as I walk out of the bathroom, I start to lose balance. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm losing I'm like literally like falling on the ground.
Almost like you're drunk, kind of like that kind of a feeling.
No, like my shit is giving out.
Oh.
So I had a stroke. Yeah. My entire right side of my body got paralyzed.
Wow.
And somehow I managed to FaceTime my wife, and it was like 11:30 p.m., right? So it was pretty late, and my wife was working early morning, so thank God she woke up. And I'm FaceTiming her, and I didn't even know what the stroke was.
Right.
I didn't know that, I heard of a stroke, but I didn't know that the symptom of a stroke is paralyzed one side of the body, and then you can actually die from this shit.
Yep.
So I call my wife. Thankfully she picked up. We start FaceTiming, and I'm laying on my bed. Somehow I managed to climb on my bed. I'm laying on my bed, holding the phone like this, with one hand. My entire right side is numb. My right arm, my right leg, I can't move it. My lips are like this.
They're drooping on one side.
My eyes like basically closed. Like my shit is numb, like all my right side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm explaining my wife what happened. I came back from sparring. It was like a rough session, bad day or whatever. I smoked, and then this happened. And I'm like, I think I'm just high. I think this is some kind of side effect of me smoking, because it happened right after I smoked this weed.
Right, you're like, let's do this some good shit. I don't know.
I was like, maybe, I don't know if it's laced with some like
Right.
I didn't know what to think. All I
Right.
know is I'm laying there with half of my body fucking numb, and I
Right.
can't move it. So anyways, thank God it was a mini stroke, and it lasted for about 30 minutes, and then gradually I felt the blood flow coming back.
Yeah.
And and then I walked to the kitchen, and I just started chugging milk and eating fruits and like things that I found in the fridge, because subconsciously I was thinking maybe it's because I'm depriving myself of nutrients, because I knew what I was doing.
Right, you know how you were eating.
I was in the cycle of restricting like crazy, binge eating, throwing up, and then running.
Right.
I was purging through exercise and making myself throw up.
Right.
And so I believe that's what caused the stroke to happen. But that was also kind of a turning point in my life, because that's when my wife decided, enough of this whole fucking distance relationship shit. I'm coming to you, to Pennsylvania, and we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do next.
What a woman.
Yeah, so she came, and we're like, okay, like I knew my dream was to live in LA,
Right.
and she knew that too. That was 2017, but in 2016 we went to LA for vacation.
Okay.
And I proposed to her behind the Hollywood sign.
Oh man.
Yeah, and
That's
we
nice.
had the best vacation, and it was an amazing time. And I believe she fell in love with LA back then too.
That's right. Blessings.
So I was like, she knew I was depressed. She knew I was like struggling mentally. She's like, okay, you graduated college. What holds you here in Pennsylvania? I'm like, nothing. She's like, okay, so let's go to LA. I'm like, but we don't, like, all I do was like coaching swimming. I was coaching this swimming club, teaching swim lessons, and training strength and conditioning at this boxing gym, right? I'm that, like, how do I find a job? We can't move if we don't have it. And she doesn't even have a working permit in the United States. So she doesn't have a fucking social security number.
Right.
So she's not even allowed to work. So we were like, how are we gonna make it happen? So anyways, we decided to make it happen. We talked to my parents. My parents agreed to support us for a few months until we figure out, everything with the job and shit. And we just packed our shit, got in my car, and drove from Philly to LA.
Man, that's crazy.
That was another. So heart attack and the cardiac arrest was a breaking point in my life, which made me move from Ukraine to United States. This stroke was another turning point in my life when my wife and I finally started living together. Right. After a long time of distance relationship.
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird. I was thinking, how ironic, right? Like half of your body is paralyzed, and then your other half says, "I'm coming to you." Like, right, in your wife, right? Like your better half is like, "We gotta be together." I just think it's such an ironic piece of story, right?
That's funny. That's funny.
So talk to me now. So you're headed out to LA. You and your wife pack the bags, right? Yeah. So do you come out and immediately start going into coaching and to training, or what does that piece look like?
Basically, we arrived. We lived at the Airbnb. We rented out the room, and we're like, okay, let's start job searching. First day we got here, and she's like, okay, but I'm like, okay, what are my best chances for a job? Probably swimming, because my of my resume as a swimmer. I'm a NCAA All-American, nationally ranked swimmer, Pennsylvania champion, junior national champion of Ukraine.
Right.
But she's like, but is that your passion though? And I'm like, no. And she's like, then fuck that. And I'm like, okay, so what do we do? And she's like, you love working out, you love training, you love boxing, you love strength and conditioning, right? I'm like, right. So she's like, then maybe you should become a personal trainer, because my degree that I got in college was aligned with that.
Was it kinesiology or something? Or?
It was athletic coaching and professional education.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of a kinesiology. I started as a kinesiology major, but like as a phys ed major, physical education major. But then I realized I don't actually want to teach phys ed in schools. I want to do something more than that and do something on my own, not just work for the government or whatever.
Yeah.
So so we start looking, I'm like, okay, boxing, strength and conditioning. We start looking for gyms, and we find this gym which was perfectly aligned with what I was looking for. It was a boxing and fitness gym, kind of like Box Union where you used to work. It was called Box and Burn, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. I never met too many of the coaches, but I know the place well. Yeah, I've seen it.
So back then they had two locations, one in Santa Monica and one in Brentwood. And I came and I took a class, and it was amazing. It was the funnest workout I ever had. Yeah. It was the circuit with 3 stations. Back then it was mitt work in the rings with coaches. We work one-on-one, hitting mitts, and then the next station is heavy bags, and then it's conditioning on the floor. 4 exercises, 40 seconds each, like a mini circuit. Yeah. And you did that thing 3 times, and before that there was a warm-up, and at the end there was a burnout round, which is like a whole bunch of high-intensity exercises, full body, like jumping lunges, jump squats, burpees, everything like that, and then also an ab round. So I was like, what a fucking perfect format. Less than an hour, super high energy, super fun. You get to do mitt work with coaches, and they fucking encourage you and push you. And then you do heavy backs, practice those combinations. And then on the floor, you do strength and conditioning with dumbbells and battle ropes and kettlebells.
Yeah, I feel like Box and Burn, I at that time, so you said this was about 2017, 2018?
2017.
So 2017, I was working on the northeast side of Los Angeles. So I was working out in like Eagle Rock. But I had heard about Box and Burn. And, and this is my I'm just starting to get into like the kind of boutique boxing fitness world. But Box and Burn was always brought up. They were definitely ahead of the curve. Obviously, like right after them, a lot of other companies came out. But I feel like Box and Burn was really on top of it especially 2017. I remember their name coming up quite a bit.
Back then, they were amazing. Back then it was everything: the culture, the community, how it was, the structure of their classes. Everything was just top notch. And the gym in Santa Monica, which unfortunately they don't have anymore. That building is demolished because they're building like a apartment complex, and that's
just like everywhere else in LA, right?
Yeah, but that gym was like really old school looking boxing gym, like brick walls with graffitis and fucking, I don't know, like mirror, like, I don't know, this rusty, like vintage type of boxing gym.
Even as you're talking right now, I can feel still your
Bro.
excitement of that, of like walking into that gym.
I am grateful. I am very, very grateful to Box and Burn. Shout out to Tony and Kev, the co-founders of that gym. It's been an amazing time there. I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people. I found my passion,
Right.
and yeah, that was another amazing chapter in the beginning of me just really developing into the coach of that I am now, because that's when I got a lot of experience. Like at some point I was teaching 24 classes a week, bro.
Right.
I was teaching a lot of classes, working with a lot of people, so I learned how to communicate with people, how to connect with different personalities, how to coach different personalities. I took kids classes, so I had to find my keys to different ages, not that I didn't before with swimming, but it was different.
Different modality though.
Different, because now we're talking boxing and strength and conditioning and just fitness in general, right? So it's a little different world. So yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, I think you hit on a key word, and obviously this podcast is really about not just your story, but as we talked about, right, providing insight onto the journey and what it takes and how we all get here into this fitness world or sport world. But you hit on a key word that I talk about so often, which is learning how to communicate, right? Communication. And how interesting, right, that you come to this country, you don't even speak the language, right? And now you're at this place, which obviously to this day still excites you. And I can see it like in your eyes. Like when you talk about that place, it was a place that was probably a pivotal point for you in your learning and growth as a coach. But talk to me a little bit about learning to communicate as a coach and what are the things that you learned in terms of communication and dealing with all that different clientele. And I worked in Santa Monica, so I know the variety of clients that you can get. But talk me through that a little bit.
So number one thing is you need to understand the person, you need to understand their needs. That's the number one thing, because there's no such thing as a superior training program. There's no such thing.
Right.
It's all individual. What I think is best for me is not necessarily best for you. And there's more than one way to the top of the mountain.
That's right.
Somebody gets in their best shape and lives their best life by running. Some people do it by lifting. Some people do it by boxing. Some people find their passion with circuit training or whatever. You know. So that's where I believe that's the number one key, to understand the person, what they need and what they like.
Right.
Yeah.
And what things are you doing to find that out in your sessions, for example? Like, do you have a process where, like I'll give you an example. Like in my intake process, it's essentially just a questionnaire. Who are you? If I don't know you personally, if I know you personally, it's still the same questionnaire. What are you looking to do? How many times are you looking to train? Did you play any sports in the past? I'm just trying to find out who they are, and then it helps spur the conversation.
All of this is important.
Yeah.
All of this is important, and especially their past experiences. What did you do before? With fitness.
Right.
Did you work with a personal trainer before? If yes, why did you stop? Because
which is a very important question.
You wouldn't stop if you were happy with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you wouldn't be here now trying to start to work with me if you were totally happy with where you are with your fitness. So there was something that you didn't get out of working with the previous guy. So let's get to the bottom of this. Like, what did you not like? What made you stop working with that person? Or what kind of experiences you had with sports and training in general. Okay, tell me, like, did you play sports? Did you like those sports?
Right.
Would you like to include something like this in our training? Like, what kind of program do you see yourself doing for the rest of your days?
Yeah.
Tell me, how old are you now? You're 30? Okay. Do you see yourself doing this thing till the day you die?
Yeah, till we're out of here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said something too when we were on the phone that just struck a chord with me so well, right? Which is, I asked you obviously, and I ask all of the guests so far. I said, is there anything that you want to talk about? Is there anything you want to promote? Is there anything you want to, in case you have like a program or something? You said, no, I am the product, right? And I thought that was such a profound statement, because one of the things that, one of my functions at, my former employer, right, was helping coaches understand that you are the business within the business. And so as you talk through this, what I'm hearing from you is like, I listen to the customer, and then the product, deliver. Right, whatever the variation is that they need.
Because I can find keys, because again, I've worked with boys and girls as young as 3 years old,
right?
And I work with elderly people, men, women, former military, professional athletes, people who never worked out ever and never played a sport,
right?
People who've been overweight their entire life,
right?
I've worked with all of them,
That's right.
So I know how to find keys to people, because number one reason why people don't achieve their fitness goals, you know what it is?
What is it?
Adherence. Can't stick to. They can't stick to either their training program or their nutrition.
That's right. The lack of consistency, essentially, right?
So there's no superior way. With training and nutrition. I know people who kill it on the vegan diet. Right. I personally been vegan for almost 3 years, and it didn't work for me.
Right.
So these days I'm really into flexible dieting,
right.
But I believe at the end of the day, if you have your food preferences, whether you're pescatarian or you like paleo or keto or whatever, you can make it work, right, as long as you see yourself doing it for the rest of your life.
Right. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it in order to hear. I agree.
So
so talk to me briefly. As I told you, I found you obviously on Instagram, right? That was where I was introduced to you and your brand and who you are. So, I don't know how many followers you had when you were, when I first started following you. I just, it's not something I ever really checked for, but I know now for a fact you have a very strong following on your social media. I'm curious, because I'm sure there's coaches somewhere around the world who are trying to do the same thing, right? In terms of get their following up through using boxing or using fitness. When did you, for you personally, notice that switch hit? Like, was there something you did, or was there something that you just happened to do by accident that sent you, kind of catapulted you into this following? Yes. And then beyond that, what has kept you there? Because you can get a lot of followers and then they can leave, right? So, but you've managed to keep that following growing and going. Yeah. So take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I blew up on social media in 2020.
Right.
That's when it was like peak time for TikTok, and it was just the time when Instagram introduced Instagram Reels. And so I believe that was a perfect time to really grow. And like you said, I got catapulted.
Yeah, it was good timing, huh?
It was good timing.
Yeah. With action, it was good timing, and then you did something.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I did is I was like, okay, I want to grow my social media, because at that point I was no longer with any gym. I worked for Box and Burn for about 3 years, but then we parted ways, and I just started doing my own personal training business and, working for myself.
That's right.
So I was like, I want to grow my brand, through social media, and so I started TikTok account, and all the TikToks that I was making, I was reposting on Instagram, and it was first TikTok that blew up.
Okay.
Yeah, on TikTok I have almost 350,000 followers. Right. Which I don't actually use that account anymore, because at some point it's all me. I don't have personal assistants. I don't have nobody. I don't have bots.
Right. You're really on these accounts.
I'm fucking typing every message. I'm replying to every DM. I edit every video. I do everything. I don't have an editor. I don't have a bot. I don't have an assistant. Nobody.
Right.
So I'll be honest, I got kind of overwhelmed with the amount of shit that I was doing and all the content that I was putting out. that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna focus on Instagram,
Right.
and I just kind of left the TikTok account. It's still there, and I recently I tried to start to consistently post on it again,
Yeah.
but I think the algorithm just died on me. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
algorithms is one of those things that can be frustrating these days. But what we were talking about was the perfect timing.
Yeah.
That's when the reels were just the brand new thing on Instagram,
Yeah.
and it was very much easier to go viral,
Right.
and get on the explore page and stuff like this. So I was like, okay, what's my niche? My niche is boxing and training, So I was like, okay, how do I make short 30-second videos where I teach people something, or give them some kind of value.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned at Box and Burn is they taught us how to run our social medias. And Tony Jeffries was always saying, with every post, you should do at least one of three things: educate, entertain, or inspire. So it's possible to hit even all three
Right.
in one post. But if you don't hit all three, try to hit at least one.
Right.
Educate, entertain, or inspire. So I was like, okay, how do I make these cool looking videos so people, because let's be real, most people scroll through Instagram like this.
That's right.
So
Real fast.
So you gotta catch somebody's attention, So I had a strategy to be like, okay, the first frame has to be eye-catching. So it would be like a big block of text, how to throw straight punches or
Right.
whatever, or how to block, or how to hook, or whatever, or full body workout, something big text like this. And then in 30 seconds, I would share whatever that is I would share. I would try to educate people on technique, on boxing.
Yeah.
I would try to give them value with the workouts.
Yeah.
Or I would try to just entertain them. I made entertaining videos of like boxing styles,
Yeah.
like Philly shell, aggressive brawler, or Philly or counter puncher or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These
I
kind
always
of-
love the ones that you did like specific combos. You know what I mean? I think I saw like when you did like a Canelo like head to body shot or
Yeah,
something. So
yeah.
those definitely
yeah.
stuck
People
out
like
for me.
that type of stuff,
Yeah.
And demonstrations, exactly. I would go and watch my favorite boxers knockouts and cool moments, and
Yeah.
I would try to and it made the process fun for me, because
Right.
I love doing this shit. I go in the gym and I really train this, and I try to emulate these fighters who
That's
I
right.
love watching. I'm not a pro boxer, but
Right.
I love training this shit.
Yeah.
I love Mike Tyson. I love Gervonta Davis. I love, Canelo. And so I would watch their fights or watch their highlights or whatever, and I would save those videos on my phone, and I would go to the gym and I would try to recreate that stuff on the heavy bag or in shadow boxing.
Yeah.
And then I would take videos and I would put it side by side, and people liked it.
Yeah, and you touched on something, which I think is so valuable for just coaches in general, right? Which is coaches, number one, need to be inspired, because I think what we do is really creative, right? We have, like you said, in order to tailor your workout or to tailor a lesson or whatever to a client, you have to have a creativity about you. And we're inspired by other coaches. We're inspired by the top level athletes. Like it takes inspiration to then inspire others, right?
Yeah.
And so, last thing, and we're coming up to time, I think, in a little bit, but like I told you earlier, one of the big reasons that I think I connected with you most, I had been following you, I believe, on Instagram, and that's my preferred. I don't do the TikToks much, but I'm headed in that direction. I think it's about time. I'm probably like 3 years late, but whatever. But the one thing I connected with you was your story about surviving cancer. I think you had posted something specifically about that. I remember seeing pictures on that. And then a lot of people don't know this. I'm a type 1 diabetic. So, you look at the top 3 killers in America, right? It's cancer, it's diabetes, and it's heart disease, right? So when I see this story, it's something that I deal with every single day.
Yeah.
I have to give myself insulin shots, kind of that whole nine. And so that really connected me with your story and your journey, because I knew at that moment why you did what you did and what kept you going and why you like to share this boxing journey, this fight journey, this training journey with others, how inspiring that is. But can you talk me through a little bit of that time, like how you know, number one, how you found out, or, you know, however deep you want to go into that. I'm just curious to know, you know, what happened, and then how has that played a part in kind of your journey as a coach as well?
Yeah. So, cancer kind of came out of nowhere. I got diagnosed with stage 3B lymphoma, which is lymphatic system cancer, in 2019. So it was in my neck, chest, and stomach. You know?
How did you were you feeling something that was happening, or okay?
At the point of diagnosis, it grew on me. But cancer is a bitch, man, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't find out that they have it until later stages, and this is exactly what happened with me. I didn't know I had it. I just lived with it, and it kept growing inside of me, you know, and the symptoms also gradually started to appear and bother me more and more and more.
What kind of symptoms, if you don't mind me asking?
So yeah, to keep the long story short, you know, the symptoms that I was dealing with was skin irritation. I was having these irritations on my skin, on my arms and my legs, and it was itchy. It was not red or any type of color. It was like just irritated skin. I don't know how to describe it. Like you couldn't almost see it.
Right. Easy to mistake for just something that wasn't
whatever.
serious.
And I've seen dermatologists about it, and they would tell me it's eczema or whatever, you know. And they would prescribe me creams that never worked, for the obvious reason now, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't dermatitis or eczema. So, skin irritation. Then I also, since the tumors were growing, right, I was feeling discomforts at first in my stomach and in my back, and then eventually that discomfort grew into pain, into the kind of pain that I couldn't lay down anymore. I slept in the chair.
Oh wow.
Sitting down. At first, like I could sleep on one side, but then I couldn't sleep on my back because the pain was too much, or another side.
Was it hitting like nerves or something? Was that what it was?
Yeah. So the way my oncologist described it to me is that those tumors got so large that they were applying pressure on the surrounding organs, like on my heart and on my lungs and kidneys and all that. So there was like, shit got tight, crowded, you know. Yeah. So those were the symptoms that were bothering me, and they grew over time. And skin thing started in college.
Wow.
You know.
Oh wow. Oh, so you're assuming that it probably was happening back then.
So coming back to the time when I struggled mentally, that's why I believe I got cancer, because I was taking poor care of myself, and I was in a dark place mentally, that my body was never switching. You know, you're aware of sympathetic nervous system, right? Sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yep.
So my body was always running in the sympathetic nervous system state, always in the fight or flight.
That's right.
I was never switching into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. You know, which this is where you heal, this is where you recover, this is where all these processes must take place. No organism can survive in sympathetic nervous state for a long time. It's just a matter of time until if you're there long enough, it's a matter of time until your body starts to break down. Yeah. So that's why I believe I got cancer.
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's how I, got diagnosed in 2019. And when you hear a diagnosis like this, it's scary, right? Because I lost some people to cancer who I loved.
Yeah.
And it's not a secret that cancer kills a lot of people every year. And so when I first we show up in the hospital because So I went to the urgent care because all these symptoms were bothering me so much. I didn't have insurance. I paid $200 to urgent care. The doctor checked me out. He told me, you gotta go to see cardiologist. I'm like, what do you like? Because I had lumps on my neck too.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know what the skin is. Probably you need cream. I'll give you cream for that. The pain that you have in your back, he says that's probably an injury. So you should take it easy on the workouts. But the lumps on your neck are concerning. And I think it's a heart issue and you should see cardiologists. So I went to see cardiologist at UCLA. We did an x-ray. A couple days later, he calls me and he says, I need to see you. It's urgent. And I'm like, whoa. So I cancel all my clients and I call the owners of the gym, tell them to find me a substitute for my classes. And I go to UCLA, my wife, and we sit in the waiting room. And I'm just like, she's like, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, yeah, as long as it's not cancer, whatever.
You said that.
Yeah, wow. I said that. And so the doc comes out, calls us over, and we go in this room, and he starts to go like really gently and slow. And I'm like, doc, just fucking tell me, what is it?
Yeah.
He goes, it's cancer, lymphoma.
What goes through your mind in that moment?
I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. I was scared because to me it was like, I was like, why is this so fucking unfair?
Yeah.
I was like, I fucking came through all this bullshit to even get to United States. And then long distance relationship with my wife and all this depression, eating disorder, fucking heart attack, stroke, all this bullshit. And we finally start to live together and be happy together and just creating our family and just enjoying each other, and going for walks and talking and watching movies and just being there with my wife. And we adopted a dog from a shelter. And it felt to me that I just finally started to live that dream, that I used to dream about. And then I find out this diagnosis. And so I was like, the last thing I want is to lose that,
right.
Lose my wife, lose my dogs, lose this life that I worked so hard to create, because I was finally happy.
You've built this life.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I felt like I was finally happy, but now there was an obstacle in my way that was trying to take that happiness away from me and take my family, take me away from my family. Right? So, but I'll be honest, we were scared. My wife and I, we were scared. We walk out the doctor's office. We walk into the elevator. So we're like, okay, what's the plan? Well, the first thing to do was to apply for insurance because I didn't have no insurance. And chemo and cancer treatment can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, And we're like, okay, so we had a plan of what to do moving forward, but that's what this cardiologist told us. Okay, you guys go out, go to the emergency room, tell them that you have all these symptoms, tell them that you don't have insurance, apply for Medi-Cal, which is, insurance for people who have like extreme situations, right? They lose their job due to the disability, which is what happened kind of with me, right? So we had that plan. So we walk out of this office and we go to the elevator and we're both silent. My wife and I, we don't say nothing. We just kind of ride in the elevator silently down to the parking garage.
Thoughts are just going.
Yeah, we get to the parking garage. We walk out to the parking garage. We walk in front of our car and then we face each other and we embrace each other. We start crying. We just cried for like 2 minutes and then we literally wiped the tears off and we're like, okay, if somebody beat cancer before me, who if not me?
That's right.
This is exactly like, that was my thought process. If somebody else fucking beat this shit before me, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna find every fucking thing that's gonna give me an advantage and I'm gonna do it. And let's see what happens, you know? And I believe that attitude is what really healed me, because I think a lot of people who do die while fighting cancer become victims.
Yeah. They quit.
Yeah. They just kind of go with the flow.
Right.
They don't change nothing about their way they eat. Doctor tells them, hey, avoid gyms because there's a lot of germs in there, and when you do chemotherapy your immune system suppresses.
That's right.
You can get sick, so they do that. They listen to that, and then they go get chemo treatment, and they walk around with fucking lunch boxes serving Lay's chips and Coca-Cola and processed meat sandwiches.
Right.
People don't even care about going on Google and typing what foods are cancer foods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, even if I do die, I'm not gonna die scared.
That's right.
Like a little bitch with my knees shaking,
Right.
beat on myself. You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna die like a warrior, fighting for my life. Even if I do die, I'm gonna die courageously fighting for my life and for this life that I'm creating with my wife and my future family. You know?
Yeah.
So that was the attitude that I selected, because everything is a choice, you know? Or let me rephrase that. A lot of things you can't control, but you can always control your attitude. And I'm a big believer in alignment. And by alignment, I mean your thoughts, your actions, and your energy.
Right.
And if you align those three things, you can literally change who you are, because those three things make up who you are. They make up your personality. How you think, how you feel, and what you do every day is your personality.
Yeah.
You know, when you meet a person and they have a negative talk and negative actions, you say they have a negative attitude.
That's right.
You know, but if you meet a person and they're positive, they're inspirational, they're optimistic, and their actions are in such a way, you say that person has a good attitude.
That's right.
You know, so that's your personality, your thoughts, your actions, and your energy. And your personality creates your personal reality, aka your life. And so if your personality is aligned with being a victim or a sick person or whatever,
Yeah.
then that's what your life is going to be.
That's right.
But if your personality is aligned with, you know what, I don't give a fuck what's going on in my life, what obstacle I'm going through. I'm a savage, I'm a warrior, I'm a leader, you know, I'm a fighter. And there's nothing that will stop me from living the life that I desire.
Yeah.
And if I do die trying to create that life, then so be it.
Yeah.
But I refuse to live a life of a victim.
Yeah, I love that. I love that energy, and I feel that, and I felt that in your post when I had watched it, and that's how I feel every day. People always ask me about you know diabetes, and by the way, diabetes is nowhere near getting stage 3 lymphoma cancer.
But still,
But it's my journey, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel that, and I think the reason I had connected with that too, because the first couple of days I find out I'm diabetic. Life is different. I remember my mother telling me, she was like, we're in Vegas, my cousin lived out there. We're getting ready to go out to the strip like we always did, but now I know I'm diabetic. And she looks at me, she goes, remember, you're not the same anymore. And I remember that hurt. Like almost, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm still the same, but in reality it was true. But the question was then, okay, it's true, I'm not the same, but does it mean I'm worse? Or can I still get better?
that's up to you.
That's up to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
like I feel that piece of your journey. And so obviously with your journey, I imagine you had to go through the chemo and it sounds like,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you made a decision to live the healthiest life possible,
Yeah.
fight it, do what
Yeah.
needed to be done.
Yeah.
And then, so how long did that last for while you were fighting it?
So I beat it really quick. I got diagnosed in October 2019. January 2020, I was in full remission.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm
And
talking
it's
about.
funny because that morning when I found out when I'm in full remission, I wake up and a buddy of mine is a boxing coach in Ukraine.
Okay.
And he's good friends with Alexander Usyk.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and I wake up and I see this message, and it's a video from him and Usyk wishing me strength and luck and you know, and it was like a good positive message that they sent to me, you know, wishing me luck in my fight with cancer. And yeah, that later that day I had a checkup with my oncologist, and at that point I did 4 rounds of chemo only.
Wow.
And my oncologist even was surprised with
Yeah.
how quickly it, you know,
Yeah.
everything got turned
I
around.
didn't know who they were fucking with. That's what it was. Listen, I think we're close to time here. So I think I just want to finish this off by saying, first and foremost, brother, it's honestly an honor. You know what I mean? Like, just listening to your journey. It touches me. I hope it inspires others. But man, you're just a bad motherfucker, dog. If I can say so myself. Like, you know, I think there's gonna have to come a period where maybe we do a part 2, because I still want to talk about.
Let's make it happen.
Obviously, you know, you're a father now, and kind of that whole nine. So we'll talk about that. And
Let's
continue
book it
that.
right now.
Let's do it right now. Sure, we can do it. But yeah, with that being said, I think the last thing I want to just get from you, you know, as I stated, this to me is a passion project where we can really educate and inspire, and particularly our coaches around the world. If there were, you know, 3 pieces, you know, of brief advice, but like meaningful advice that you could give to coaches trying to, you know, whether they're in another country trying to make it over here and do their thing, or just coming up in LA, what would it be?
I would say, you know, do it from your heart, you know. That's one thing that I would say, because unfortunately there's a lot of people, especially in the fitness industry right now, that come in for the hype or for the money, or they see opportunities or whatever. I personally do it because I know what rock bottom feels like.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be fat and out of shape and insecure and hate how you look in the mirror and hate how you feel about yourself. I know what that feels like. And I know what it's like to literally be dying physically, you know? And unfortunately, a lot of people out there are just not even aware that their lifestyle is killing them, you know? So if you're a coach out there and this is your passion, just my biggest advice would be lead by example, because hypothetical is hypocritical. You know, if you don't practice what you preach, if you don't do the things that you say people should be doing, then you're a fraud.
That's right.
And you should get out of this industry. So that's my biggest advice. Be authentic and do it from your heart and lead by example.
Powerful, brother. Well, once again, thank you. Can't wait to do it again. We will, for sure. And again, hopefully you guys found some value in this, and you know, this is what we're here for, to, you know, inspire, to motivate, but mostly, you know, just share real journeys about real people doing real things in this fitness industry. And so, you know, again, thank you, Shark.
Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah, man. We'll do it again. All right,
do
y'all.
it.
Thank you for tuning in to Your Coach's Coach. I appreciate you guys, and make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.